Gillespie with Rancid and Sweaty Calves coming at you with yet another video, and in this one I'll be covering an article that I saw on my For You page on Google. Now, I couldn't help but laugh when I saw the headline because we all know that identity politics is certainly playing a role. You can see it in the very trailer and the dialogue that is used in said trailer, that they are desperately trying to inform this story and the story that Tolkien based off of traditional ideals and views just to be a timeless story about knights fighting for freedom and justice across the plain open world. With modern day politics. They're attempting to inject modern day politics into this story, and we all know that. We can see it from the trailer, we can see it from what they've said in their own words, and now they're trying to do damage control. The co-showrunner, Patrick McKay, tells Total Film the show aspires to being timeless like Tolkien's work, which is really an insult to Tolkien's work when you really think about it. I'll read through this a little bit just to kind of give you guys the basis of what this guy's argument is. The Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power comes loaded with expectations, everything the showrunners know to expect considering the sheer popularity of J.R.R. Tolkien's work. However, one thing that has been brought up numerous times on online forums is the rumor that modern politics will influence the story. That's not the case. This was one of Tolkien's debate points with C.S. Lewis, his friend and colleague. Co-showrunner Patrick McKay tells Total Film in the new issue of the magazine, which features Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power on the cover, it was very important that what he was creating was not an allegory. He was not commenting on historical events of his time or another time. He was not trying to transmit a message that spoke contemporary politics. He wanted to create a mythos that was timeless and would be applicable. And that's his word. Applicable. The applicability across times. No. Applicability is not the key word there. The key word is timeless, meaning that you can look back on it and enjoy it no matter what time you're in, no matter what day and age you are in. And Lord of the Rings is something that you can do that with. This show is already hated, and it hasn't even come out yet because they have done nothing but spit on Tolkien's legacy. They have completely contradicted Tolkien's lore. They hate the fact that Tolkien's story is about a bunch of white guys doing heroic things. They hate the fact that there's not half female representation, half black representation, half transgender representation. They hate that fact, and they've been trying to inject that garbage into this series. And I'm not saying that people who have, like women or black people are garbage. I'm talking about the modern identity politics that requires you to inject them in scenarios when they don't need to be in there. Just like if you were to inject a white person into an African culture, in a movie that's primarily African in nature, in a movie that has primarily African culture, like Black Panther, if you were to inject just random white people in the Wakandan army, it probably would be a little weird, and they didn't do that. And that's one point in Black Panther's pocket. That's the only thing that you can say that Black Panther did well, was they actually established a significant portion of the lore that Wakanda is a primarily African country. But, I mean, that's besides the point. These people want to inject that kind of identity politics into a story that is primarily about white people and primarily about men doing heroic things, and they want to inject that identity politics to make it seem like those white guys aren't necessarily as good as they were. And that's been on full display. Every single choice we've made at every turn of making this show has been to be faithful to that aspiration. No, it hasn't, because that's what we want as viewers. We don't want to adapt the material in a way that might feel dated. We aspire to being timeless. That's why these books still speak to people so much, because so much of what's in them has not aged a day, and we simply aspire to do the same thing. And I think we feel that once people see the show and see what stories and characters and worlds are in context, they'll feel the same way. Here's the thing. You calling Tolkien's stories too white, or saying that you didn't feel represented, is already a contradiction of that statement. Paying people to give you floofy, fruity little stories and whatnot, that's your thing. There is no such thing as an alternative Tolkien story. It is Tolkien's story. What Tolkien has written is what is Tolkien. Them trying to adapt it in this way and manipulate it to be something else is not Tolkien. It's Amazon. And no one wants to see Amazon. They want to see Tolkien. Another talking point in regards to this series has been about the expedited timeline the series is set across. Rather than have the Second Age run for thousands of years, the showrunners working with the Tolkien estate condensed the story. Otherwise, humans would be dying between episodes due to their short lifespans, and only 11 characters would be in every season. A non-linear series was considered, but that McKay explains would have stopped the audience from emotionally investing in the series. Fellow showrunner Payne points out how plenty of real-life historical dramas do the same thing and says their guiding principle was the respect for the spirit and feeling of the Second Age. They have no respect for the spirit and feeling of the Second Age that's been on full display throughout the entire marketing of this show. It's literally, oh, look at Warrior Galadriel, something that was never in the Tolkien stories, something was never in Tolkien lore. Look at Warrior Galadriel. Let's go with the Queen Regent of Numenor instead of the king that was ruling Numenor at the time. Let's have a half-female army of the Numenorians, which was unheard of. It takes away from Eowyn's sacrifice and Eowyn's charge to battle in the Return of the King. It takes away all the value of all the female characters in the original Lord of the Rings series. It takes away so much of the value of character development that actually happened in the Lord of the Rings trilogy that Tolkien himself wrote. This garbage show is going to spit on Tolkien's legacy, and it's going to make Tolkien a laughingstock. No, I'll take that back. It won't make Tolkien a laughingstock. Tolkien's stories that were better written 100 years ago are going to make Amazon a laughingstock. Because nothing that Amazon will ever do in terms of adapting or trying to manipulate Tolkien's stories to be what they want it to be will ever be better than Tolkien himself created it to be. And it is just their own wording in this interview with whoever it was that they did the interview with. Their own wording explains and expresses why it is. Total Film, the issue. Their own wording explains why it is that they are going to fail at this, because they don't understand that Tolkien stories are already timeless, and you don't have to change things in them to fit a certain political ideology to make them more timeless. You're dating yourself by injecting identity politics into it inherently. You're immediately dating yourself in the 21st century by trying to reflect the world that you currently live in compared to the world that Tolkien created. You're immediately dating yourself. You're immediately taking everything that Tolkien worked so hard to create and tossing it out the window so that you can inject whatever politics and whatever ideologies you want into this story. You're immediately ruining what Tolkien worked so hard to perfect. And that's exactly what these people want, is they want to have a basis that is already created so they can then inject their ideologies into the story and try to get viewers to watch them. But it's not working for Tolkien. It worked for Star Wars. It worked for Marvel. It worked for DC. It worked for all these other companies. But when it comes to Tolkien, there's enough of a fan base that understands that this is not supposed to happen, that it is finally becoming apparent to the populace and to the fans that they don't want this. That this is nothing more than a political ploy to get people to watch Identity Politics, the series. Generalized fantasy with identity politics, the series, is what this show is. This show is a laughingstock to everything Tolkien, and I cannot wait for it to fail. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like, comment down below your thoughts on what you think is going to happen in this show. I've known a lot about what's going to happen in this show, and it doesn't sound good at all. And they're just completely contradicting the lore, but let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I will be addressing something else really soon here that I hope you guys get a laugh at regarding Natalie Portman's arms, so stay tuned for that video. Also, share this video with your friends. YouTube is suppressing creators and they're trying to get rid of the share ability, so if you guys would be willing to share these videos right here, right now, that'd be a huge help. I appreciate every single one of you. Regardless of whether or not you share it, regardless of whether or not you like it, just viewing this video is enough for me. I appreciate it beyond belief. You guys really don't know how much I appreciate it. But nevertheless, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Check me out on Patreon and Rumble. I leave links to those in the description below. I hope you guys have a great day and a great rest of the week.